I worry that there are some members of Congress who are rooting for conflict and war with China. We've always had hawks and warmongers in Washington that think the United States is better off if we're perpetually in conflict. Obviously, what happened is absolutely unacceptable, and there were repercussions. The visit by Secretary of State Blinken was canceled. But I also want to make sure that we don't sort of slip into conflict with China, a country with which we have $6 trillion worth of trade every year. So we need to continue to pursue a policy in which we are competing with China as an adversary. But we aren't making mistakes just because of something that shows up in the headlines. We have to have a thoughtful policy of managed competition with China. I think China is very embarrassed by this incident. I think there's evidence.
Just stop right there. Welcome back, America. That is Senator Chris Murphy. There are senators who are rooting for conflict with China. I asked former Senator Jim Talent, who joins me now, what do you make of that, Senator Talent?
It's the classic line, that those of us who believe the way to prevent war is to be strong, to strengthen deterrence, are actually warmongers. When it's actually weakness, of course, that encourages the aggressor to aggress. It's our ability to impose sufficient costs and consequences on aggressive powers that deters conflict, right? So the problem and the reason we're moving towards war in Indo-PACOM is that the Chinese are the dominant military power, certainly within the first island chain, and are therefore encouraged to believe that they can attack, for example, in Taiwan and achieve their objectives. So it's exactly the opposite of what he's saying.
Yeah, Senator Murphy is a perfect example of what Peter Thiel and I spent 2 hours talking about, people who are co-opted. And I immediately thought Greenwich, Connecticut has got a lot of financial interests that are tied up with China. And that Senator Murphy, who's been a guest on this show, is a nice enough guy, but he is clueless or deeply compromised. And I don't mean in an intelligence way. I just mean he doesn't want to upset the Chinese.
Yeah, look, the language he used was incendiary. It's not unusual to hear that from people who don't want to build up our defenses. So he shouldn't have done that. I think he's generally speaking, given his ideological point of view, with which I do not agree at all, a pretty good senator. But that kind of comment is not representative of where the vast majority of the Congress is coming from. As you know, the Democratic Congress last year added $40 billion to Joe Biden's defense request. And we're going to continue to see a strong bipartisan majority wanting to be strong and have policies that'll deter China.
Yeah, I would love for you to go and read the transcript. I edited it for readability with Peter Thiel. He really gets China. And he is very aware that India isn't the greatest ally. Germany is completely co-opted. And that the world is on a holiday from history is what we're on collectively when it comes to Xi and the CCP.
I think we were on that holiday from history, from the end of the Cold War, roughly through the middle part of the teens. And I think this is one of Donald Trump's big achievements, as he dragged our foreign policy into the 21st century, in particular, where China was concerned. And so if you look at national security strategies before then, although Obama had begun the rebalance to Asia, the roots of Trump's policies were in Obama's policies in the second term. You got to be fair. But we weren't even mentioning China really to any degree at all in our national security strategies until Trump took over. And then his people very quickly came around, and he very quickly began building a national security architecture that we need to deal with China going forward. So it's a messy process. But I'm overall, if we were doing what Mike Gallagher has said we need to do to strengthen short-term deterrence in Indo-PACOM, I would be pretty pleased with how Washington has responded in the last 5 or 6 years to the Chinese threat.
But Senator, I want to give you a chance. The New York Times says we're going to add $19 trillion in debt over 10 years. I just talked to Rick Scott about that. That means $50 trillion in debt, which means at 5%, $2.5 trillion in interest payments every year. I don't know how we maintain peace through strength when we have got a debt of $50 trillion.
Yeah, well, one way we don't maintain it, is by blaming it or cutting the defense budget or restricting what we're going to do on defense, okay? There's so many reasons for that. We do not have that deficit because of what we've done with the Department of Defense. I have a very grave concern that these deficit talks are going to result in restrictions on discretionary spending, okay, half of which is the Department of Defense, that as soon as the Democrats get full control again, they'll blow the lids off the non-defense discretionary spending, and all we'll be left with is more restrictions on defense. You want to hurt the economy and blow the debt up even higher? Let's get a war in Asia, okay? So, I mean, we have to have peace in order to be able to dig our way out of this debt. It's absolutely counterproductive to suppress the defense of the country in the name of economy. It'll end up.
Do you remember the Moynihan Commission? Can we do anything like that right now?
We've done commissions. I mean, we know what we need to do. The other thing about it, it's so ironic, is the things we need to do to strengthen short-term deterrence in Indo-PACOM are not that expensive. I mean, Gallagher can. That's right. It's longer-range cruise missiles. It's hardening the bases in Guam. It's stockpiling munitions. I mean, yeah, I'd love to have 10 more.
Senator Talent, thank you.